Coming to you from the Windy City. Welcome to Let's Talk Shop, a podcast about all things cloud and enterprise tech. Listen to insights and guest interviews with IT thought leaders and professionals. Now, here's your host, Elias Khnaser.
I have a really special guest today, and it's from one of my favorite companies. I am biased. I love all the cloud providers, but it still is Google. So it is my great pleasure to have on the show today Sachin Gupta, who is the Vice President and General Manager of Infrastructure and Cloud for Google Cloud. Sachin, thank you so much for making time today.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. I'm really excited to be here.
We're going to talk about a lot of things. We're definitely going to be talking only about AI. So I hope you're ready. Yeah. But I want to kick things off a little bit with, you talk to a lot of customers, you touch a lot of things. So maybe before I start with my questions, give our listeners, our viewers, a little bit of an overview about your role, what you do specifically, and then maybe we can go from there.
Yes, I'm responsible for infrastructure at Google Cloud. And so think of that as the IaaS services, in addition to what we put outside of our public cloud regions, which is our distributed cloud product portfolio. I'm also responsible for reliability across the entire infrastructure, which is obviously top of mind as customers move critical workloads into Google Cloud.
Very cool. Distributed cloud is fascinating for me, so I'm sure it's going to make its way into the conversation, especially when we talk about AI. But let's maybe start a little bit at a higher level. I want to pose a question that I think I want to start with digital transformation. Now, my problem with digital transformation is I feel like it's a term that's a little bit overused, like people have a little bit of a fatigue towards digital transformation, but nonetheless, I still feel like this is kind of what everybody is doing. So we have to touch a little bit on what the state of digital transformation is worldwide. And you're talking to a lot of customers, so give me an idea of where you feel like the US is, for example, customers in the US is from a digital transformation perspective versus other countries. Are they very far behind? Is everyone kind of moving towards that? Is digital transformation all about subscription-based now? Give me your kind of unfiltered opinion of where things are at from a digital transformation perspective.
Yeah, there's multiple questions in there, I think. So let's maybe take them one at a time. Yep. So when I think about digital transformation, working with customers closely, number one, what's top of mind for them is how do I take the advancements in AI, in data analytics, data technology, in order to derive better insights for my business, so that I can improve my own end customer experience, my own productivity, my own agility. I can save costs. I can innovate faster. Those are the things that are top of mind for them. At the same time, they're also looking at what are the perhaps older application development environments that they have, and how can they move to sort of more modern container-based, serverless type of designs. And then finally, they also still know that a lot of those legacy environments will exist, but what can they do to somewhat, migrate those so that there's less headaches? It's do I want my people working on this infrastructure, or do I want them innovating for my own business? So, digital transformation, as you said, it can mean a lot of different things. But for me, it's really, what can I do with AI and data? How do I create this modern development environment for my developers? And how do I make sure that I reduce what I need to do to take care of some of the legacy environments so I can shift focus on more innovation that helps my business? And then you asked about where are we, right? And so I'm not sure this is a US versus other countries' point of view, but as we know, the on-prem to cloud migration is well on its way, but nowhere close to even the halfway mark, or nowhere close to finished. So a lot of great opportunity. And I think Gen AI and all the new AI things that we hear about can create sort of further opportunity to leverage the latest and greatest technologies in public cloud with Google that gives you the best scale, the best efficiencies, so that you can move as quickly as you want as a customer. At the same time, what we find, though, is the on-prem environments, and we can talk more about this, there's reasons and why sometimes you have to stay on-prem. Those also need to start catching up, because just because you had to keep your data on-prem shouldn't mean that you don't get access to, Gemini, you don't get access to Vertex or the latest container capabilities with Google Kubernetes Engine, you should be able to get those wherever you need it. And that's a huge focus for us as well. And so as that transition's happening, there's still a lot of runway into public cloud. Okay, we're not even halfway there. And we want to make sure that we can help customers where they're at on their terms, and that could be at the edge or in the data center. So I think I got 2 out of 3 out of your questions there, but hopefully that helps.
That really helps. Now let me double click a little bit on it. Now the way you describe it, feels like it's still a cloud conversation, and we've just added AI into it. Do you feel that way? Do you feel like AI is simply going to, because I believe AI is going to accelerate whoever was kind of stubborn, hasn't moved to the cloud, hasn't started the migration yet. I feel like AI is it was like the last straw. It's going to push everyone in that direction. I do recognize, and I agree with you about on-premises. We will definitely talk about that a little bit. But do you agree that AI simply accelerates cloud migration even further?
I think that makes sense to me, because with AI, how you think about your data strategy, how you think about modern applications where you want to leverage the power of AI. Like, what are you doing AI for, right? Is it for customer interaction, knowledge capture? Is it for productivity improvements? And so the new class of applications, enterprise applications that this enables, will require that you're thinking about modernization. We'll think about how you think about your data strategy, and then how do you leverage the best and latest capabilities in AI to create new outcomes for your own customers or for your employees. That's going to be super critical. So I do think it becomes an accelerant, if you will.
Okay, I agree. So in your conversations with customers, because I get a lot of audience from diverse verticals, right? So I have a very decent following in government and highly regulated environments, in retail and manufacturing. So what have you seen as some of the hurdles as you're talking to these customers? What are the things that you hear where, hey, we can't do this because those types of real world use cases that have been challenging to overcome?
Yeah, so let me give you an infrastructure focused answer, because that's what I work on.
Sure.
And so from an infrastructure point of view, we always say, look, public cloud is what you should consider first. It's the best place to run your workloads for a variety of reasons: the scale, as I said, the efficiency, the innovation that we can create. But then they say, look, I want it, but I cannot have it in the public cloud, because let's go through some of your verticals. So first of all, retail. We work very closely with McDonald's. They have lots and lots of restaurants all around the world, and they wanted to make sure that they can improve the operations inside the store. They can improve the experience for the employees in the store, but also the customers coming to those stores. And they want to be able to build infrastructure in those stores that enables them to leverage more and more AI capabilities. For example, automated order taking. And so McDonald's, we worked closely with them, and they said, in these stores, I need the store operations to continue going, even if the connection up to the cloud goes away. And a lot of that processing must stay local for me. And while some things can obviously run from the cloud. And so they needed a footprint there, but instead of having a server with a software stack that you were managing, and you needed, to have people to operate this environment, they said, can you just give me a fully managed cloud-like experience in those stores? So that's what we partnered with McDonald's on.
And you're accomplishing this because now I'm intrigued. My dad owns a restaurant, so whenever you bring up restaurants, I'm intrigued. So, but we have one, so I want to try to replicate what you've done for McDonald's. Is it GDC? Is it through distributed
yes.
cloud? Is that,
and so the product there is Google Distributed Cloud, which takes the best that we have to offer, that we can deliver to you in starting from 1 RU server that would be right for a restaurant, but can also scale to hundreds of racks. Right, and so that's the restaurant example, but we can take Google Distributed Cloud, and just to sort of maybe explain sort of what it entails. So we provide the hardware, we provide the platform services, we provide VMs and Kubernetes and storage and networking. We provide all the database services on top, things like AlloyDB, Dataproc. We'll have managed Kafka soon. We provide integrated ISV services on top, so Elastic, MongoDB, all kinds of partners that we're working very closely with to integrate so it runs on this cloud stack. And then we're able to offer it in two modes. One way where it's centrally operated. So you have Google people operating it across maybe hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of locations you have, or even the one restaurant, right? No issues at all. And then we've got a mode that runs, and I think you mentioned listeners who are in the defense side, for example, government side, where they may need it fully air-gapped. So that cloud can run as a connected cloud or a fully air-gapped cloud. So the McDonald's example, clearly it's a connected cloud, but that connected cloud can survive 7 days with no connectivity. Because remember I said, if those circuits aren't great, if you have an outage on the WAN link, you want to make sure that the services keep running. So that's what that's designed for. And just to touch on a couple more verticals that you talked about. So you talked about manufacturing, for example. That's a key vertical for us, because what you have is a lot of the applications needed to run the manufacturing line need to run locally. Okay, for latency reasons, you cannot really run them in a public region. They must reside locally. But then they are leveraging power of video and vision AI in order to detect faults, right? To prevent loss, to make sure that if something's been manufactured incorrectly, you can use that technology locally to detect that very, very quickly and improve your business. And so that's a manufacturing example. And then both of those cases can be connected, meaning the operations of that cloud environment can happen through Google. But then you get into environments that are government, think defense, think intelligence, think highly regulated industries. So things that are critical for societal continuity. Sometimes some of the central banks, financial institutions are part of that. Energy companies, for example, are part of that. They say, look, I want all of this cloud. I want generative AI. Like, I actually want to be able to do a search on my own data. Just like you show Google search on the internet, I want to be able to do search on my own data using generative AI, using RAG technology, new capabilities, vector databases, embeddings, all the things that are components as part of that. But I need it delivered as a solution on-prem, fully air-gapped. And with Google Distributed Cloud, we offer that mode. And when they see this, and we're very happy we're working with CSIT, for example. They're a partner who delivers services to the Singaporean government. Super, super excited about what we're able to do on that side. And then similarly, we work with Proximus, who are doing this with us in Belgium and Luxembourg, another partner. And so when they see the power of public cloud, generative AI, modernization, data, and the fact that they can run it the way they want it on their terms, it's just, it's eye-opening, and we're very excited to help them.
So that also solves a sovereignty problem then as well, does it not?
Yeah, so sovereignty, it's a big word, right? And so it's best to sort of break it apart a little bit. When you say sovereignty as a customer, what exactly must you adhere to? And so if the point is that you need to be able to control the encryption keys, if you need to be able to control, hey, does this data stay in my country?
Okay, that's fair.
We offer those capabilities in our public cloud. So that's, you can go to our public regions, you have that. But now, you're a defense customer, you're, managing logistics for your aircrafts. You're not going to put that data anywhere except in a highly classified, top secret type of environment. And so that's where the difference comes in. Or if you're an energy company, yes, you can get the sovereign controls in the cloud, but what you're protecting from is that maybe there's no cloud, there's no connectivity to the cloud, but the energy services must keep going on. So you need to know that you've got a cloud environment locally that can run in perpetuity with no connectivity to the internet or to Google. And so there's from a sovereignty point of view, there's a ton that we provide over our public cloud, and actually fulfills the need for most, I should say. But then you've got these class of customers where it just simply is not enough, and that's why we have Google Distributed Cloud.
So let me push back a little bit on you on that, because I love the example you gave with McDonald's, where, hey, if it needs to disconnect for whatever reason, you can run offline for seven days. That makes total sense to me. I mean, if things are not connected back in 7 days, there's something major going on at that point.
Yeah.
But when it's highly regulated, when it's air gapped, doesn't that limit the features, the capabilities? Like, there can't be feature parity between what you're giving and distributed in GDC versus what you have in Google Cloud. So are you able to custom deliver specific services that they need? Is it, this is what we can offer and that's it? Like, it can't be feature parity between what you have in the public cloud and GDC. So how does that, how do you square that?
Yeah, and that's a great question. I think there's two considerations, right? One is in the public cloud, we've got massive resources to run applications at global scale, our own services at global scale. So there's a handful of services that we simply cannot move into a few racks or into a one RU server, and there's just no technical way to make that available, right? And so that's one way to think about it. And then in this environment, though, we are absolutely committed to bringing the latest innovation. So I'll give you maybe a couple examples. So AlloyDB is a database that we brought out, which is based on open source Postgres, but it provides double the performance. It's much, much better for analytical queries, for vector databases to support GenAI. We announced support for AlloyDB on Google Distributed Cloud and on Google Cloud at the same time. Right? So there's two ways to think about this. One is, yes, there's a whole historical set of capabilities in public cloud. Whatever can run in this environment, in this form factor that our customers need, we're bringing it there. And then as we introduce new capabilities, there's another new capability, which is, I mentioned Kafka earlier, Google Managed Kafka. That's being introduced on Google Cloud and Google Distributed Cloud at the same time. And so we are actually able to bring innovation at the same pace, at a very rapid pace in these environments. Just one last, because I run the engineering team for this and work with customers very closely. When it's air-gapped, the updates can take some time because the customers have to accept that update. So you might wait a month or two. We'll provide it monthly, but they may wait for a month or two before absorbing that update and the new capability. That's the one difference that does come into play, but that's a choice based on their regulatory environment. But we're able to deliver that innovation in the connected mode at the same time as Google Cloud.
That's very interesting. So let me add an AI maybe twist to this.
Mm-hmm.
How does AI impact this? So I totally get the public cloud conversation. I get distributed cloud. But what happens when you kind of add AI into the mix? Like, we're here, NVIDIA is going nuts, whether it's the stock price or how big the company's growing, and they're talking about these chips, and it takes massive power to run. Are we bringing this power locally? It just doesn't make sense to me. So how are you handling AI in this conversation?
That's a great question. So I think, we're obviously very differentiated in our public cloud with the entire vertical stack, all the way from chips, GPU, TPU, whatever you want, and all the way into the machine types, into Vertex AI software, into APIs, into our own models, right? And so we bring all of that into Google Distributed Cloud. So let me explain that. Okay. First of all, we already support NVIDIA GPUs. So they're a great partner of ours. We already support GPUs and different options on Google Distributed Cloud. Now, those deep GPUs there right now, the most of the use cases we hear about is we will train a large foundational model in the public cloud.
Okay.
So that's where it's most effective. Or we will take open source models like Llama 2 or Gemma, and we will take those models and then we will fine tune it with our own data. When you're fine tuning it with your own data, a few, maybe a couple of dozen GPUs may be sufficient. When you try to train a foundational model, you'd get into the thousands and you get into massive scale. And so, could we build that? Possibly. But for now, what we're focused on is, for most enterprises in these government use cases, they want to take a large model that's trained on a bunch of data, bring it into their secure facility, and then train it on their custom data, their own IP, or their own classified data. And the beauty is we don't stop there because we bring the Vertex capability, pipelines, workbench, prediction, speech to text, translation, OCR, the RAG capabilities, the chatbot capabilities, the search capabilities, all of them on Google Distributed Cloud. So you can either consume the APIs like Translation API easily, or you can build your own apps on top of this and service it for your users. And so it's actually super exciting because we do these demos for customers, as I said, and they see the solution coming together. And when you look at it first time, you're kind of like, this kind of feels like Gemini. Like when I go to Gemini and the chatbot, I ask it questions. And when they realize that the questions that they're asking are about data that is completely internal, and they're able to do that without that data ever leaving their premise, so they can meet all of their regulatory needs. That's amazing. Now I can get that power for all of my workloads, not just limited to what is unclassified.
I'm going to pose a question that's probably hard to answer, but I want you to give me as best an answer you can, because pricing is and that conversation is very complicated. But to me, what you're describing sounds very expensive on premises. Like, I can totally get it in the public cloud. I get how the pricing works there. It's on demand, it's reserved. There's a lot of things that we can tweak. A lot of people are using the public cloud, so that reduces the cost a little bit. Is what you're describing very expensive? Is it attainable?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. Actually, you reminded me of the third part of your first question, which is on the consumption or subscription side.
Yes.
I think you mentioned subscriptions,
Yes.
right? And so the great thing here is, look, cloud consumption, or how people buy cloud, I guess, is usually through consumption. And when you commit to certain usage, like, think of that as a subscription, right? I'm committing to consume all of this. You get a much lower price point. That's true for all cloud providers. That's what we do. Our Google Distributed Cloud is offered exactly the same way. So we can put equipment out there, and you can pay for consumption of the different services, or you can subscribe to them. And because you subscribe to them, that implies 100% utilization for that service. We can get you a much better price point. And so all in, we believe that we are more price effective than a do-it-yourself model. So for example, I bought my own hardware, stuck my own VM and Kubernetes and storage and networking services. I managed my own database on top of that. I found some other open source, whatever. If you compare it to that, all in, including operations, et cetera, we believe we are much more cost effective than that. And we didn't want to go and offer this on premise and completely change how you think about cloud consumption. And so the same types of offers that you have, I pay for consumption, pay for use, or I can do committed use, which is kind of like a subscription.
Yep.
Both those options are available with Google Distributed Cloud.
Well, this is a pretty big paradigm shift for organizations. Historically, the on-premises data center was very highly virtualized technology. But as you see the impacts of AI, and you mentioned earlier at the start of the conversation, we were already migrating to the public cloud. Different folks were at different parts in the journey. The maturity model was different. AI is accelerating. What I'm saying is the second phase of that migration to the cloud, including the types of services that you're talking about, the hybrid capabilities. Do you feel the traditional on-premises, highly virtualized environment needs to start moving towards this type of technology in order to maximize not just cloud, but also all the AI capabilities that are on top? Like, can someone just limit themselves to what they're currently doing and ignore what's going on with AI?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And I have 2 points that I'd really like to make here, right? One is we're before the first innings, if you will, on AI, right? So it is super important for customers to ensure that they're not worried about the infrastructure. Like, they're really worried about, how do I gain insights? How do I innovate faster? How do I get cost savings by leveraging the power of AI? How do I improve my customer experience? If the on-prem infrastructure does not move to this cloud-like model, I believe it does slow them down. And so the first meta point is, Google Distributed Cloud is part of our strategy of, we want to enable AI anywhere. And so I'll give you another example. Like, we worked with the government of El Salvador, where they would love to have a public cloud region in the country, but perhaps the size of the country and the economy doesn't quite support it today. But they still want to run AI capabilities, and they still want to have infrastructure in country. And we're able to take Google Distributed Cloud, put it in El Salvador, so that their most sensitive applications can stay in country. They get the power of AI, and the rest of it, they can leverage one of our regions somewhere else. And so that's a country example. Another example is Orange. They need to operate in 26 countries. They have all these call records. Those call records must stay in country. They want to apply AI capabilities to improve customer experience. They can now do this with Google Distributed Cloud in every one of those countries. So AI anywhere. If you stay on legacy infrastructure, legacy stacks, there's no way you'll be able to keep up with the pace of AI, with the pace of innovation. That's my perspective on this. And our objective is, the simple answer is, hey, you want this, great, move to public cloud. And our customers are like, that, it doesn't work. And so with Google Distributed Cloud, we believe we've got a complete portfolio to meet them where they're at, right? And then, so I said there were 2 points I wanted to make. The second point is, even with what I described with cloud and with Google Distributed Cloud, the connectivity fabric between all of this and the security between all of this, because imagine you still have these on-prem instances, you've got Google Cloud, SaaS applications, maybe some things in other hyperscalers. How you think about networking in this cross-cloud environment
is crucial.
Is extremely key. It's crucial.
Yes.
And I know we're not talking about it here today very much, but I just want to touch on this because we announced this a few months ago. We'll be talking about it again shortly, is cross-cloud network. And cross-cloud network says, after you've got this, your own cloud on-premise with Google Distributed Cloud, you've got pockets of data in different places, and you might have your AI model here, your data here, your enterprise application there. And you've got to connect these environments simply, cost-effectively, and, very important, securely. And the way that people have to do this today, the enterprises have to do this today, they end up having different stacks. It gets confusing. They open up security holes by mistake. We have not made it easy. And with cross-cloud network, we're saying it doesn't matter if that workload sits inside Google Cloud or not. You can leverage the power of our network, our global network, which is incredible. It runs services like YouTube and all our workspace services. We can bring that reach, that reliability, that scale, efficiency to you. And we are very open about it. Like some of the other options out there say, oh, you want to do that, you got to use my security stack. And we're like, no. In Google Cloud, you can bring the security stack of your choice. It just natively is embedded in our POPs or in all of our regions, and you can leverage the security stack of your choice. So it is like that part of AI, which is how do I think about connectivity and security? I think it's a little less understood so far, but we're very excited that we're able to help customers with cross-cloud network.
So I love that you're not shy about talking about this. Now, you didn't mention any names. I will, and help me understand if I'm getting this correctly. Okay. So if I have a presence on AWS or if I have a presence on Azure, and maybe I'm using capabilities there, maybe there some AI capabilities there or not, I can use Cross-Cloud Connect to connect all of these capabilities, correct? Is it via API? How is that happening?
Yeah, so absolutely. So let me just touch on it a little bit, now that we've got on the topic, right? So 2 things. First of all, I think we're one of the very few who take our applications like Looker, like LOADP, like BigQuery, and we enable you to run it where you want. Okay, that's one. Second thing is, let's say you've got something running in AWS like you described. We're doing 2 things. There's the underlying physical connectivity. And so there, I did a lot of networking, so I might be getting to the weeds here a little bit.
Go for it.
You've got to go set up 2 routers, one facing AWS, one facing Google Cloud. You got to set up those connections. You then are managing each of the SLAs on your own as a customer. All right. And what we say is we remove all of that, and we say we do cross-cloud interconnect as a service, and we provide an SLA on top of that for you, and we remove all of that pain. That's for the physical connectivity.
So can I interrupt you? Sorry. Are you doing that in collaboration with the provider? Like, for example, are you doing that in collaboration with AWS?
You have to. So this is we have to integrate with AWS. You have to integrate with Azure on it. And what happens is we meet in the colo facility together.
So it's a direct cloud-to-cloud connection between Google.
It's a direct cloud-to-cloud connection.
I love it.
Where Google removes pain for the customer. And I believe we're the only ones offering that, actually. And then, so that's physical connectivity. So now you've got this high-speed connection between the clouds. Now imagine you have a database service or some application tier sitting in AWS. You then need to give your DevOps, your developers, access into that, all right? So setting that up requires network rules, security rules, where now you're writing into sort of somebody else's framework. And what ends up happening is you're writing in so many different frameworks, it's so confusing. You make mistakes, it's inconsistent, things take too long. So what we're doing is we have a capability called Private Service Connect. And Private Service Connect is, think of it as at a high level as a proxy in front of that application. And that's where you set up all your policy rules and you enforce them. We're now extending that capability. It used to be only for services running in Google Cloud, but we're extending it so it can work on services running anywhere. So the same NetOps, SecOps process that you went through to expose an application or a service to the developers can be applied regardless of where it sits, in another cloud or Google Cloud or even on-premise. So it's something we're calling service-centric cross-cloud network. It's a mouthful, but trying to describe what it is, it's service-centric and is across all of these cloud environments that customers are using. So anyway, cross-cloud networking and all the innovations there, that's a very long topic, but super, super exciting. And I think it's a critical part of what people are trying to achieve with AI, right? So you love Gemini as the model. It runs in Google Cloud, but your data is sitting in a database somewhere else. You've got to think about networking. You got to think about security. We make that easy for you.
So I have to probe on this. Just one more question, two questions actually. Can I deploy GDC on AWS as an appliance, as a virtual appliance, or is it just capabilities in containers that can be deployed on Azure or on AWS?
Yeah, so I think you don't need GDC. For example, I mentioned you can run Looker, you can run BigQuery. You don't need GDC for that.
Okay.
Those applications come with some limited infrastructure that they need to be able to run in other environments. So I think the way to think about it is GDC is when you're outside of our public regions, when you're at the edge or on-premise in a data center. And cross-cloud network is the capability to connect any of these environments. And that can be with a different hyperscaler, or can be on-prem, can be SaaS applications. It doesn't matter.
It's funny. I talked about this topic in 2015. Everybody was kind of not taking it seriously, which is the ability to interconnect between cloud providers, connect their services natively. So if you're using BigQuery, you can use the equivalent on AWS. But this brings up a really interesting point. So Google is not shy about enabling a customer to use someone else's services. Typically, providers like yourself would kind of not like this approach because you kind of want to keep the customer using only your services. Why is Google enabling customers to do this? Is it a philosophy? Is it a philosophical position that, hey, it's a multi-cloud world, whether we like it or not? Is it, hey, we're kind of behind, so this is going to give us an edge? Why is Google?
I mean, since I've joined, right? I mean, I've heard we've taken the leadership on multi-cloud. We stay true to that. We've taken the leadership on open source, being open. I think you see that in everything we do. And then we also are very serious about hearing our customers, listening to them, understanding where they're at, and addressing the needs. And so, I mean, you saw this. We were the first out of the hyperscalers to announce free data transfer on Cloud Exit. That's incredible. But we took the leadership there because we're paying attention, we're listening to our customers, and we want them to be able to pick the best technology that addresses their needs. And so I don't think this is actually a change since at least the last few years since I've joined. Again, multi-cloud, yes. Open, yes. And we always used to talk about meet the customers where they're at. And it's about meeting them where they're at and helping them go where they're going. And staying open is super important.
I love it. The data exit, I think it's very helpful. Everything you just described helps reduce lock-in. I think that's a very welcome step from customers. Where do we go from here? What's next for AI? What do you see the future? What is it like? Are we building our own? Are we building Skynet? Are we going to hurt ourselves with AI? How different is AI going to look 6 months or 18 months from now, do you think?
Oh, come on. If I know that, I mean, I'd be,
I want your crystal ball reading of.
Yeah. No. I think, honestly, I think there's still going to be a lot of experimentation, but I do see us moving from experimentation into production enterprise applications quite quickly. Okay. Because you don't need, to do that, you don't need something that can answer any question and always be perfect, right? You sort of need in this use case, it needs to be amazing, very, very high confidence. So you've seen, like, for example, coding applications that where if it's trained on your own coding environment, the usage and the acceptance by the developers can go significantly higher. And so you're going to find, again, it's going to go from experimentation to real usage. And it also has to. And some of this is costly. Like, I mean, if you're training all these models and doing all these things, you need to figure out what those use cases are, get into real enterprise applications. And so for me, obviously, there's the whole consumer side of this. And we want to enable cloud customers who also service consumers. But the enterprise apps and those maturing, I think, is what we'll start seeing more and more of, certainly in the next few months. And you can't, previously you might say, oh, something's going to take 2 years. In the AI world, anybody's saying it's going to take X amount of time. I just don't know how they know that, right? And so everything has become accelerated. And so I think very quickly you're going to see more and more production use cases. And I always tell people, how you're interfacing with it and what it can do. I can't even imagine like a year from now what that will look like. And that's exciting? Like that's super exciting. And coming back to my infrastructure hat and my cloud hat, I want to make sure that we let customers innovate with this rather than worrying about all the other things that go along with it. And so that's my job.
That's awesome. Sachin, I really appreciate you taking the time. I learned a ton of things about what you guys are doing. I really like the journey that you guys are taking. The roadmap looks great. I'd love to have this. Maybe we could do this again in a year and see kind of what the progress looks like. But I want to take the time and have this chat with you, have you tell us a little bit about what you're doing and kind of what's upcoming.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for making time for me
Well,
today.
thanks. It was great chatting with you. Thanks for the opportunity. And yeah, it would be fun actually to do a look back a year from now and see how things are going.
See how they change, right? We're gonna look at your crystal ball and see, hey, did we hit it?
That would be amazing. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care now.